Good afternoon, everybody, and great to have you with us as we kick off the 2017 Pirelli World Challenge Championship season, and we do it at an absolutely fabulous venue. It is the St. Petersburg Grand Prix presented by Kasich, and we are looking at the Pirelli World Challenge GTS grid for the opening round of the championship. I'm Greg Creamer, joined by Calvin Fish. Jeff Lepper is down on the grid, and we'll be doing the start command here in just a few minutes with some very special drivers on the field and a VIP to set things off. Weather, really, Cal, is about absolutely perfect, and looking forward to this one. And there is some new look machinery out there. Really excited about this.
Well, we talked about such a fantastic season last year in GTS competition with the introduction of the GT4 machinery, and you look at our pole sitter, that's Lawson Oschenbach. He's a familiar face, but that car is a brand new GT4 Chevrolet Camaro. What a debut. They don't have a ton of miles on. They actually just received their team cars last week. They had a development chassis, have done about 5 or 6 test days. Some of that was thwarted by rainy conditions, so not a ton of mileage, but coming out of the box strong with the pole position.
Yeah, it says a lot about not just Black Dog Speed Shop by Pratt & Miller, who actually did the build on this GT4 homologated car. They've had success in other stuff when they've built up cars, so that's perhaps not a surprise. Within 2/10, well, just a tick over 2/10, however, Parker Chase really letting people know that last year was not just kind of a one-off fluke. They have been very, very quick. Both he and his teammate Harry Gottsager, but Parker has been hooked up. Maybe one of the big surprises, maybe it's not a surprise at all, is Andrew Aquilani right there in that black and gold Phoenix Performance Mustang. That is not a GT4 Mustang, which we expect to see racing later in the season in this championship. He was in the area and decided to come back. Of course, a lot of wins in this championship, and decided to come back. Led the first practice session, had a good run in qualifying as well. The question is up against these later GT4 cars, including the Camaro, which has a pretty substantial weight loss relative to last year. How long will he be able to keep the Pirellis underneath that car? And then you look around him, the Sin, the Expo. I mean, there's some pretty amazing stuff.
Well, I think there's a number of question marks going into this race. One is the fact that that Chevy Camaro does not have a lot of green flag running on it, so they did about 15 minutes was the max talking to the team. Aquilante, he's in that Mustang. It has a great pedigree here at St. Petersburg. They've won the last 4 races here. Jack Roush Jr. swept last year, then I believe it was Dean Martin and Spencer Pumpelly the year before. So the Mustang is strong around these street circuits.
It is. Now, one of the things all the drivers are going to have to be contending with is this, a completely reprofiled and reconfigured turn 3. They've done some paving to the track. They moved that wall off to the left of the screen back to open it up, and in doing so they exposed a bit of a jump, and it was launching cars, and so they've made this fix to it. It's going to be a matter of just how long that will last. It was poured in the middle of the night last night, Cal. It's tightened that corner up substantially. Yeah,
and we were looking backwards down the track with that view that we had right there. So that's the entry to turn 3, which is a right-hander on it, that very fast sort of straightaway up towards turn 4. And they'd moved that apex wall to the right-hand side back, and I think with that combined with that straightaway piece being somewhat resurfaced, there's a huge bump there. I don't think there was a concern so much for these cars, but with the Indy cars running here this weekend, we have to run the same configuration. That was not going to work for those guys, so they made the change last night. These changes were made after these guys were last on the racetrack in qualifying. So what we're going to see here when we get going here is we're going to see 2 formation laps, and then we're going to start the clock on the 50-minute time cycle there, then 4 additional laps behind the pace car, so these drivers can really get a feel. I think those pace laps will be a little bit increased in speed as we go, so everyone gets a feel for the racetrack before we go racing.
I think it's smart. Like you said, no warm-up this morning. They would be heading into that sight unseen. And even some of the GT competitors in that GT3 equipment, which obviously runs very close to the ground, etc., we're saying they were getting tires off the ground, and it was really moving the cars around. In fact, caught a couple of them out and ended up, getting into the wall. So it was a change that had to be made. It's just a matter of one of the concerns is with that curbing being poured basically less than 12 hours ago. If cars keep hitting it.
Well, you can see a little erosion there from the shot that we saw, so it's going to be a question mark for sure, and I would bet that it's going to be continually worked on throughout the course of this weekend to allow it to survive.
And, of course, you look at it, you've got the Mustang for sure, the Camaro still. they're able to use a lot more curb than some of these much lighter, much closer to the ground run GT4 spec cars, the Crossbow in particular, the Sin, those type of cars. So it's going to be interesting to see how it runs. Now remember, Nate Stacey, who this year is moving and is running, and this is a great program, the new Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport MR, which is a full homologation GT4 car. He was leading here last year in a Mustang when he kept pounding that curb in turn 13, or at the end of the S's in 12, eventually broke a suspension point. That's on everybody's minds. You know, you can do it maybe in qualifying to get a lap. Can you do it throughout a race? I think we're going to see people maybe being a bit more circumspect. But for Nate and his new teammate, Rodrigo Baptista, those two guys, big change certainly for Nate from what he's driven previously. And when I talked to him earlier, he said it's different. And he said, we're just figuring out where this car is good. We're not as quick in a straight line as some of the others. We're not as quick in the corners as some different cars. And he said, but overall on a lap, he said, we're right in the hunt, and I think we'll be there for the race.
And I think that will be adjusted as the season goes on. We have this BOP balance of performance that occurs. Talking to some team personnel in the paddock here this weekend, there was another BOP test at Paul Ricard over in France just last week. And it did seem from the little hints of information I've been getting from the people who were there that the Cayman maybe was a little bit outside of the box in terms of the performance compared to some of the other cars on the grid. So look for that car to be adjusted as the season moves on. But I think the big news is the fact, yes, Nate Stacey and Rodrigo Baptista, they're on the grid, but they're with a team that has an amazing history in Flying Lizard Motorsport, led by Darren Law and all the personnel there. That is a great team, and great to see those guys in this championship class of GTS.
And the field heads out, led once again. We're so fortunate to have Cadillac being such a strong supporter of this championship, not just as an official manufacturer, but providing our official, there it is, safety car, which is the beautiful ATS VR. Great to have that. With a full-time new addition to the championship behind the wheel, the pace car Scott Dullahite, who of course wheeled that beautiful Lotus in a number of races last year. And that gorgeous Cadillac Escalade is back as well as the official medical rapid response vehicle. So again, a big thanks to Cadillac. And here's, there it is, that beautiful Escalade, and just nice to have that back with our safety team on board. So excited about that. There's the exit of that new reprofiled corner.
And we looked at the visuals of that when we got here this morning, Greg, and it looked pretty sketchy, but actually watching the cars run, and particularly we just watched an IndyCar session, it seems to work. It's actually got a nice flow to it. You're not getting onto this straightaway, between 3 and 4, with as much speed, obviously, because it's a much tighter apex through here. But even so, they've done a pretty nice job. There's a nice flow to it, a nice rhythm, which I didn't think was going to be the case. Yeah,
well, when you come out of 2, right there by that Chevy banner, you can almost straight line your braking point turn. So I think you're right. I think it's a nice addition. One thing that we've seen, the curbing in turn 4 and the curbing on the apex of 4 and apex of 10, to me, much more abrupt. It's just a much much more sudden climb than we saw last year. So that's something that drivers have been a little bit more careful about. Now, here's the good news. A lot of this track repaved, and the drivers to a person have said in the areas where they haven't got the undulation, they said the grip is through the roof compared to what it was. They're loving that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, drivers love grip, they love horsepower, so if you can give them both, that's always good news. But Lawson Archenbach, he was actually talking to the driver steward, Brian Till, yesterday about how much curb are you going to be allowing me to use through this section of the racetrack. We're coming right in here to turn 11 and 12, right through here, and this next part right there, that curbing right there is where they were really eating it up last year. And Brian said, well, I'll let you use some, but don't abuse it too much, otherwise you're going to get the rat with the stewards. But Lawson Archenbach doing his due diligence in terms of identifying with the stewards. What are you going to let me get away with this year?
And he made good use of that curb in qualifying, but again, race length is a different deal, especially when they don't have a lot of laps. Now, we are completing the first formation lap here, or pace lap. We're going to have one more lap before the actual clock starts. Again, a 50-minute race, as it always has been with Pirelli World Challenge GTS. So we'll get one more lap before the clock starts. Then, as Calvin talked about, the 4 laps that will continue, essentially, each lap getting a little bit faster behind the pace car each lap. And Scott Dullahite will be able to wheel that Cadillac ATS VR around nicely and get these drivers a little bit more pace through that new section of the track. And then we will go racing. But that way, we obviously will be a few laps into the race, even though the clock will have started before we see the green. But I really think that's probably a wise move, Cal.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you really just can't let everyone out there with no real identification of what the apex is like, what the bumps are like, what gear ratio do I need to be in. So I think what we're going to see, as I mentioned before, this pace car speed increase a little bit. Not to pure racing speed, obviously, but we've got Scott Dollarhide behind the wheel. That's great. He's very professional, obviously knows the racetrack. But the bad news is we're not seeing him behind the wheel of that really pretty Lotus that he campaigned last year. But he said, I've got a few irons in the fire, maybe I can do an odd race here or two this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And here you can see, those cars now. There's Lawson Aschenbach, that beautiful Black Dog Speed Shop, new GTS 4-spec Camaro. But as the field sort of streams through here, dropping back, you can see a little different graphic scheme on the Ginettas. But there is Baptista and the normal Flying Lizard livery. There is the green and black Flying Lizard livery of Nate Stacy. And it was a program that obviously, everybody watched Nate last year and went, wow, he has really, really shown himself here. Well, it caught Darren Law's eye, and he, of course, is the team manager, the program manager for Flying Lizard. They talked to Porsche. They put a program together for he, and they'd also noticed Rodrigo over in Europe, a very young gun coming up, and decided to put a program together. It's exciting stuff. It
really is, and I think this GT4 platform is exciting. I think from a budget point, it really hits a sweet spot for the competitors where they can go racing with the latest machinery at an affordable price. So I think it's really just going to mushroom from here and get bigger and bigger. And I think it's great to see those Flying Lizard colors here. The Troy Lee design, it's something that we're very familiar with over the years, as with Flying Lizard running with Porsche. So much success over the years. So great to see them in this class. And as we mentioned, that Cayman GT4, Club Sport MR, Manthey Racing is the MR signature there. It's a very famous German team who are instrumental in developing this program for Porsche. And I think you got two young guns who are really going to be going for it here. But Nate Stacy gets the big picture. We saw him last year, just raw speed, raw talent, raw car control. But through the tutelage of Dean Martin, I think he really came on gangbusters throughout the course of the season. We saw him settle down. He wasn't burning down the tires. He realized what he needed to do to get the results, and ultimately that paid off. Second in the championship, and that big win at Sonoma.
And just watching him progress from the start of the year, as you said, just amazing car control, bit abusive on tires and stuff. By the end of the year, when he won at Sonoma, it was a great tire management race where that's a track with all those elevation changes at Apexes that you see cars stepping out. I mean, he was just like he was on rails. The young guy figured it out in a hurry, and obviously this is a bit different for him here, and he has in each session he's been slightly outpaced by his teammate Baptista, which I think just simply speaks to how good Rodrigo is. Even though he may not be very well known, certainly here in the States. He only really started racing in 2012, but boy, has he come alive here. There he is in that Flying Lizard livery number 3. And there's another new entry that's exciting news. Panos in the Avezzano GT has put together a program with a tremendously talented veteran in Ian James behind the wheel. Back in the mid-2000s, he was actually a Panos factory driver, and really has a great association with the program, and he's reunited with a guy by the name of Tom Milner, who said he's taking a break from retirement and coming back to manage the Panos program like he did with his prototype technology group back in the day with Ian and Brian Sellers. And
we should clarify, that's Tom Milner Sr. He
Yes.
used to be the famous Tom Milner, now is his son, Tommy Milner, who drives for the Corvette racing team. So a senior who's had a long association with Don Panos, running his racing programs to various degrees over the years. So wonderful to see Tom back in the paddock, the Panos name back in the paddock. And Ian James, you couldn't ask for a better guy to do the development of the car, and certainly got some good results. I mean, they've only done a couple of very brief shakedown tests at Days, for that matter, at Road Atlanta, and to come here and qualify in the top 10, I'm sure they're pretty chuffed with that.
And the cool thing for Ian, and I'm sorry, maybe I'm just old school and everything, but you hear everybody else, when we were sitting in the grandstands heading into turn 1 with the paddle shifts and the like in the car, and just that bing, 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 bing down through the gearbox. And that's got a big V8 in it with a manual gearbox in it, and hearing him do the blip and down change, it just sounded right, man. And Ian, he'll certainly be able to get it done. And now, just so you know, we are officially underway with the race. We're into it by about 3.5 minutes at this stage, and we're looking forward to getting a green flag. But as you can see, they're definitely picking the pace up a little bit now, Cal. Coming down the front straight, heading into turn 1. There is a look at that new GT4 spec Camaro. A lot of aero advancements on the front of the car for sure. You can definitely see it's a little bit more aggressive with the splitter and some of those diplanes.
Yeah, a little surprised actually that Lawson did back himself up a little bit from the pace car there to allow himself a bit more of a free run through this section of the racetrack to get more of a feel for it. Maybe he'll do it here in the subsequent laps.
Yeah, he said it's fairly well balanced. He said, the one thing he said, as you would imagine with a big front engine car like that, it still has a little tendency to push. And he said, but it's manageable. And he said, we can certainly balance it. And he's obviously pretty excited about it, be able to stick it on pole. But as you said, the longest runs they've done is a little over 15 minutes, and it's a 50-minute deal. And you've got that very light, nimble Ginetta right behind him in the hands of one of the great deep breakers, Parker Chase.
He is really good, Parker Chase. Young man, but with immense talent, and saw him knocking on the door of victory last year. Couldn't quite get the job done, but I was watching that Ginetta in that practice session, the test session yesterday, Greg. The car looked very settled. Last year, it looked like it was a bit of a handful. I mean, he was really up on the wheel to try and keep the car, with the pace that he was trying to achieve. But this year, the car looked more settled. That will be good over the long green flag run as well, which hopefully we'll see here once we get racing this afternoon.
We should be doing that, I think, at the end of the next lap is when we should be going to green. So they're just understandably giving these guys a lot of opportunity to look at that new reprofile turn 3, which again happened in the middle of the night. And these guys had already qualified. They didn't get a morning warm-up of any type. And so I think everybody's just trying to really figure their way through this here. And hopefully we'll be actually getting back to green, or going green, to be more specific, at the end of this lap. So they're definitely got that pace picked up just a little bit here. And that third car in line, of course, we've talked about Andrew Aquilani, who led the championship actually a couple of years ago when he ran the full season for a period. Didn't end up winning the championship. Last year only raced one round, did it in the Sprint X at the end of the season, and ran the GT race and won it. Yeah, I mean, he is that good. He's really made his name in SCCA Club National Championship competition, where he's a multi-time champion at the runoffs. Lots of gold medals draped around his neck. But make no mistake, you put him up against the pros, he's as good as they get. And behind him in that Sin R1 GT4 from Racer's Edge, a driver that made an appearance in the championship last year at Barber, Jade Buford, tremendously experienced driver in the GS category of racing. 1 year he put together, I think, 7 poles in one season. He's exceptionally quick, and he did some sporadic racing with them last year. Every time he showed up,
he 3 wins, 3 poles. So
yeah,
the speed was there certainly, and maybe a championship if it competed at every event.
Nice to have him back, and now he is joined this year by a guy named Jason Bell in the really sharp look. I think that's just a beautiful car to start with, but the number 2 in a black livery, also from Racer's Edge, driver who has done a lot of SCCA racing in Formula 1000 cars and was very, very quick, and they said he's been impressive in testing. So we're going to find out right now as the pace car is in. This will be a single file start, if you will. And we now will officially get the season under green flag racing, and lots of questions will be answered. And Lawson Aschenbach, he's allowed to do that. He can bring them up from anywhere he wants on the track. We're green! Everybody fans out, and the run down in the turn. Look at that start. Flying Lizards flying early.
They really were, but look at the lead that Lawson Aschenbach has got. Aquilani goes to the outside of Parker Chase. Parker Chase tries to fight back. Now remember this little bump there in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, I think that was Monte Calvo maybe getting into it.
Now these guys have seen this turn 3 single file, but not racing side by side. Here we go.
So far, fingers crossed, everybody threw it clean. Parker was able to keep Aquilani behind him. Aquilani showed the nose, couldn't get it done. It looks like Ian James moved up a couple of spots. 2-0, Tony Gables, always known as a great starter, gets around Nate Stacey. Tony Gables on the move early.
He really does. When you look at most improved positions, it's typically Tony Gables on the move early around Nate Stacey. Aquilani there, a little bit sideways. Coming off of turn 9 through this high-speed kick, flat out through here. Very fast section of the racetrack.
Here's turn 10 on Parker looked like he went in there pretty wide. But that curve, very aggressive. That wall on the right, Cal, they've actually been able to open that up just a little bit, which I don't know that it offers a lot more speed through there. Just a little bit more confidence, I think, and comfort level.
More of a comfort zone there. And nothing else. But gradually, and certainly when we see some racing, it'll like guys to go down the inside and still make the corner possibly and not compromise their speed. So I think it'll be good for racing. A little bit different situation you see last year. Remember that Camaro that Lawson was running, the Z28, had to really defend down the straightaways. Looks like this year he's got a bit more pull.
Well, I'll tell you, Aquilani, yeah, it does, doesn't it? And I think, you know, the lighter weight on that car obviously is going to play well. And that's part of the track where they said they're getting a lot more grip. A lot of drivers are saying, yeah, you're breaking 20 to 30 to more yards deeper into one. And that's great. Look at Andrew Aquilani, got a great launch at the exit of 3.
That's going to be tight. He's going to have to use some
nice job by Parker.
Yeah, really excellent there. Just recognizing what the racing situation was, not forcing the issue, giving him a little bit of room to the inside. Andrew couldn't do anything with it. So that's just showing the experience of a year under his belt here in Pirelli World Challenge competition for Parker Chase.
And you were talking about that you know, before the race weekend here, they did that test, you know, looking for the SRO, and obviously big focus on the GT3 cars. Then they did the balance for GT4, and there were some question marks with some cars. Literally after the first test session that they ran here this weekend in the GT4 category, some of the cars got their final adjustments, and so there are some guys out there that went out into qualifying with a car that had a little bit different BOP on it. And now we'll see just how strong they've got that in play here. And looking back through the pack just a little bit for a couple of those crossbows. But the car that we're looking for is we've got the new 570S, new to this series. Boy, what a battle here around the outside.
Yeah,
now.
took the out of the outside, went to the outside. Parker Chase defended, but Andrew was able to clear him. This is where it gets tight.
Yeah.
Parker wisely decides to tuck in, not force the issue down to the inside.
And I think that was a situation where there was a possibility that Buford could have maybe tried to stick his nose in there, but I mean, Jade experienced doing what now. This is not the time, you know, or place certainly to be doing that, and left the gap for Parker. Just good heads-up driving early in this race.
At that Panos,
yeah,
that does not have GT4 homologation yet, so it's still really in a development phase for the series to try and recognize where his performance tabs are right now.
Sure,
look at this. Yeah, I mean, he's doing a great job. Ian James is right in the battle there with Baptista. It looks like Andrew Aquilani, now he's cleared Parker Chase. He's got a bit more pace and has closed in on Lawson Aschenbach. And I'm sure Lawson is driving a smart race at this point, not pushing those tires too hard too soon. We talked about the fact they don't have a lot of green flag running with this team car.
Boy, that Panos, though, does sound beautiful. And Tom Milner said, you know, they're thinking that the homologation process, when the time comes for it, won't be too involved, he said, because we've designed and built the car with a lot of the GT4 concept and spec to it. So he said we're really hopeful that that process will be eased up just a little bit here. But boy, you're absolutely right with Aquilani, and they just run that car. They love that car soft, that non-GT4 spec car. You know, running it nice and soft. It's very compliant. You can get up on the curb, and it just sticks. And you know, you might see power slides and the like, but ooh, smoke out of the back of the Panos.
Well, Aquilani just laid down the fastest lap of the race so far, 123 flat. And you're right, Greg, by running that soft setup, when you lean the car into the corner, essentially that inside wheel, which is going to hit the apex curbing, is really not being affected that much. It's almost off the ground to begin with, so it's not going to unsettle the chassis so much and spoil the platform when you're looking for grip after you touch the curb. Two of the best in the business here. Lawson Aschenbach, a four-time Pirelli World Challenge champion. Won in touring car, twice in GTS with this team, and also in GT a few years ago where he won this round at St. Petersburg as well. So he knows this racetrack, he knows what it takes, and he's starting a new campaign to great effect with pole position. Just one bonus point, new point structure for this year. Used to be 7 points per pole, now it's just one, because with, oh, that's Gonzaga, I believe. No, it's Giorite, it's Ian James 50 machine, the Panos.
I saw a little bit of smoke as he exited turn 3 last time. Now, is that his bodywork rub, or is it
the exhaust related, possibly?
Like, yeah.
Oh, look at this. Great run by Aquilani. He really got through there. He's got the inside line. He's going to force the issue on Aschenbach. He's going to have to give it to him. Aquilani to the lead.
Well, and right now, Andrew's championship aspirations are 2 races, and that's right here at St. Pete. Now, when you ask him, he kind of has a twinkle in his eye about he going to come back and run the new, Mustang as well. That's not in the plans yet, but there's a twinkle. But I think Lawson, obviously, pretty savvy driver, and it's like he's not going to fight Andrew too hard. He'd love the winner's points, but he's not going to race him and throw away second place points and end up out of it here. But he's still got Parker right behind him, then Jade. And then, tell you, Rodrigo Baptista is driving a superb race here.
Really good on debut here on the streets of St. Petersburg. Superb performance. He got a lot of experience last year in the Blancpain Sprint and Endurance Championship with one of the biggest teams over there from Belgium, the Audi squad from WRT. Had a podium at Paul Ricard. Now Parker Chase gets a run on Lawson Archabak. Let's see how they fare down the straightaway. I think Lawson's got a bit more straightaway speed than the Ginetta with that new Camaro GT4.
James into the pits.
That's a shame.
It is.
There's a great qualifying run, a good opening standard there by Ian James.
There, that white car just flashing by is George Kurtz, and that's the GMG fielded 570S is Nate Stacy. Big move down and underneath the number 8 of Bill Ziegler. Nate had dropped back just a little. Excuse me, that's Anthony Mantella. And he had dropped back just a little bit off of his starting spot, now starting to make a move toward the front. And that was Mantella again in that Gulf Mantella Autosport crossbow.
Yeah, and what a season he had with the Mantella Autosport team. His teammate Martin Barkey had a win at Sonoma. Anthony himself had a win at Utah. Just sensational performance that day. And during the off-season, he actually went over to Dubai and ran the 24-hour race with our GTS champion from last year, Brett Sandberg, along with Dory Japonik, and they had a great run, finished second in class, and without a few mechanical dramas, could have won their class there. So, great way to knock the rust off, do a 24-hour race in the off-season.
A look here, Monte Calvo.
Saw 2015 GTA champion here, right in the thick of the battle, but nice run here today so far for Tony Gaples. Team owner and teammate of Lawson Archabak.
Tony qualified back at 15th. He's already up into the top 10. He's got Frankie Montecalvo now right behind him. And again, that is a one-off that Frankie is doing. Of course, a former GTA champion. And looking to the inside is Mark Clennon. That is the other of the 570s, the Tender Belly. Beautiful orange 570S. And we're getting a report now. Of course, one of the very prestigious awards in this championship is the Optima Batteries Best Start Award, and it goes to Rodrigo Baptista. 3 spots on that opening lap he made up in that number 3. That is the beautiful red silver Flying Lizard Motorsports Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport MR. It's a lot of letters, but it means it's the true GT4 variant of the Cayman.
Understanding now from pit lane that there may be a transmission issue on that Panos versus engine, so we can get an update on that one, but just certainly a shame to see them out in the early going. But you would expect this with only a couple of days of testing under your belt, really just a shakedown, no real performance runs there at Road Atlanta, to come here on a race weekend, put in the top 10 qualifying performance. You're going to have a few issues, but great to see them out in round 1 of the championship. By out, I mean campaigning.
Yes.
Great to see them out.
Great to see them running.
Yes.
A nice over-under move there by Montecalvo, but you see once they get onto the front straight, that Camaro just a few more legs. Now Montecalvo's to move over for Clennon. Is Gaples going to out-deep Mantella? He does.
Look at this battle. A blanket over these 4. Great stuff. Montecalvo comes back at Clennon.
Not too far behind them is that black Sin R1 from Racers Edge of Bell.
And as you said, Greg, I don't think you can beat that carbon look on a race car. It just looks sinister, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It looks like the Batmobile.
It does. Great lines on that race car anyway.
Gets a run on Clennon and makes it clean down to the 4.
Run here by Jason. Based here in Tampa, local to the racetrack.
Now, like I said, he has cut his teeth in Formula 1000 SEC Club competition, which is basically a 1-liter bike engine in a very lightweight and very, very high downforce Formula platform. And he's had a lot of success, wins and poles and the like in that. And they said in testing they were very impressed with how quickly he got up to speed in this car. Obviously, you get to the racetrack and you go up against 4-time champions like Aschenbach and experienced drivers like Aquilani and the like, and Buford and everything, it's a little bit different. But they said he's really figuring it out. But right now, that top 5 has opened up a pretty healthy margin. 4 seconds clear of Harry Gottsacker back and forth. And that actually now will be Gottsacker in 5th. This Mantella, the Mantella Autosport entry, of course, of Martin Barkey. You talked about
this.
Went 3 abreast.
Frankie down the inside, that was tight. We'll be using the ABS on that GT4 car. That's a good effect. That's the nice thing. You can plow in there really deep. You shouldn't be logging up the brakes and get through the corner. Frankie suddenly turned the switch on. He's got racy.
Well, the first time he sat in that car and drove it was in the test session here on
yesterday,
on Thursday. Yes, exactly. So he doesn't exactly have a lot of laps in that car. Interesting watching Martin Barkey. You know, he's moved up now into 6th. He runs off frequently a very different line down into turn 1. He turns in way early, but it's almost like he just turns and then goes straight to the apex. And he was looking at the data last night, and he said it felt a bit quicker. I was able to maintain the speed. And those cars, you know, maybe not the best in terms of straight line. He said I could carry that speed a lot longer.
Pit
Oh,
lane
look
or
at
it
that.
slows.
Something wrong. Boy, that's a tough break. He had a great race going.
Go to pit lane. Something's gone awry. Maybe just recycling something on the electronics.
Yeah.
Now he seems to be back up to speed.
Boy, that's huge for this race. Obviously, it qualified 2nd, was running right in a strong 3rd. And now it's going to drop back substantially.
Well, if the car is healthy, he's now got a bit of a gap in front of him. And remember, your starting position for tomorrow is by your fastest lap in this race. So I don't think it was a strategy in terms of finding some space. You wouldn't want to give up points, but certainly he's got the opportunity now, if the car is healthy, to lay down a fast lap, which I believe right now, last lap of the race was Jay Buford at a 22.0.
Yep.
But everyone within a few tenths of a second. Aquilani at 22.1, Archibag at 22.2, Parker Chase 22.2. Bunch of the top 10 in the mid to high 22s, so it's very, very tight here.
And Monte Carlo, you talked about, he's kind of flipped the switch here a little bit. He's dipped into the 122s as well. And now coming up to attack Tony Gaples in the number 11 Black Dog Speed Shop machine, and he's got Jason Bell right behind him. But the guy that I'm watching is also Buford. He has just been uncorking some quick laps here.
If you reflect back, I mean, the car that Monte Carlo was running is the car that Brett Sandberg used in great effect last year, winning 3 races and the championship. And it seemed to take Brett a while for that car to come alive.
Exactly.
Maybe we're seeing a similar thing with the Answer Motorsports team, the way they set up that crossbow. Give up a little bit at the beginning of the race, think about the long green flag run, and suddenly maybe he's just got the sweet spot with those Pirelli P0s and is now going to find some pace.
I was going to ask, I mean, they, relative to some of the other cars out there, they are so light. Does it just take a longer time for them to get heat in those tires?
Absolutely.
It's like somebody may have grazed a wall there. It's the 018 Cameron Castles and the K-Sit Cayman. Yeah, he's definitely ticked the wall.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know
the left rear is
yeah.
down possibly, and obviously the side view mirror, as you can see, is askew.
Yeah. Street courses, well-defined limits, as they say.
Absolutely, they will bite you. This one is pretty good, though. It's got a nice open nature through some areas of the racetrack, but you get up here, it's extremely tight. A little bobble, clip the inside wall, it'll fire into the outside wall on exit. You have to treat it with a lot of respect. You've got to think about these double-header weekends. You can't afford that major damage today and miss tomorrow. You've also got to think about the big picture of the championship. Don't get too greedy.
And in terms of sheer numbers, it's that Cayman Club Sport MR that really is it here. You know, we talked about, obviously, Baptista and Nate Stacey, but we also have the K-Sit Racing team with Adam Merzon and Cameron Castles. And in the number 7 Krug Speed machine, we have Cameron Majari, who we're going to see full season in a Lotus for Krug Speed in touring car when that starts at Virginia International Raceway in about a month and a half. However, they decided to run him in the Cayman here, see how it went, and they're thinking, well, maybe he'll end up doing both. So that would be great news indeed. Krug Speed, a very, very solid and impressive team. And boy, look at that battle shaping up now for second as Buford is there all over the back of Lawson Aschenbach.
Well, you talk about that Cayman GT4. I believe that Porsche have sold out of their run of the cars. Talked to James Safronas yesterday about the fact that George Curtis is campaigning the 570S this year versus another Porsche. He said, I sold them all. I got 6 in my camp, not all running in this championship. And he said, I sold a further 4, so there were none available. We wanted to run, and that's why we switched to a different brand here for George for the season.
Aschenbach just turns fast lap at a 121.853 as he's feeling the pressure from Jade Buford. And we had that shot of Cameron Castles with the damage on the car. His 2017 already off to a really nice start as he and Trent Hindman won the GS class when they ran end of January at Daytona. So he certainly has a lot of experience in these cars.
He does, and the more seat time the better, particularly for some of these what we call gentleman drivers. They're businessmen and they come across and compete in a pro category. They do a brilliant job. You can't beat seat time. You just got to be comfortable, and particularly on a street circuit, they're pretty intimidating. And he obviously got caught out somewhere around this racetrack.
This is the thing we're probably going to beat to death as this weekend unfolds. So those of you tuning in and listening to us here on the web, you'll probably be sick of hearing about it by the end of the day on Sunday. But we're opening the season, although these guys don't go to Long Beach, but there are 2 straight street course races and not that much time between them. I mean, this is clearly a case, this weekend, yeah, you want to get out, you want to win, you want to be competitive, but first of all, you want to survive it. You don't want to have a car that's massively wadded up leaving you.
No, it's really critical, and particularly for some of the teams that don't have the massive resources, whether personnel-wise or financially, to fix race cars. So you got to think that you want to survive these first 2 events for the GT classes at St. Petersburg, at Long Beach, and then your season really begins. But you also don't want to fall too far back in points, as competitive as all of the classes are this year.
Well, the other side of it is the manufacturers sometimes early in the season don't necessarily have a huge supply of spare parts either, so there's a lot
that
of
was tight.
Oh, Bell!
Yeah, got in there really deep. He just avoided first Frankie Montecalvo and then the exit wall there through turn 10. Nice job, nice recovery. Just got caught up in there and just got in a little bit too deep.
Well, he knows the limit.
He certainly does, and Frankie fortunately moved at the same time towards the apex, which cleared that avenue, that path for him to go straight on.
Now we are officially just past the halfway point here, and we're going to report that Parker Chase once again has slowed significantly.
I have to think of some kind of electrical gremlin, because it seemed like he got back up to speed after slowing. Whether he's having to recycle something.
And Aquilani, you can see he's drawn away just a little bit, and that's because he also has set the fastest race lap now at a 121.6, which is wicked quick. It's going to be interesting here because Aquilani now is coming into lap traffic, and that's where you can see some opportunity. Parker Chase just pulled into the runoff. Trying to snap it out again. Yeah, boy, that is frustrating and unnerving. Okay, Aquilani, boy, that lead he had, though, he cleared the traffic, but he'd opened up about a 10-car length lead, and it's gone.
Well, I tell you what, you never cease to be amazed by what Lawson Aschenbach can do. He is the master in terms of race management, strategy, understanding what the race car has given him at any point in the race, looking at the competition, see how much of their tires they're using up. And it looked like Andrew just had a lot more pace there, but Lawson has kept him in his sights, and now his car looks very balanced.
Well, when we talked to Lawson, one of the things he said was, he said, I've got to be careful on these tires. Now, one of the good things was he went out late in that GTS qualifying session. Others already had 4 or 5 laps in before Lawson went out. On the 4th lap, got his lap, cooled it down, and pitted it. So he's got a lot less laps on those Pirelli P0s on that car. But he said, I just need to make sure I keep them underneath it, for a little bit until we get into the window where we kind of know what the tires are going to do here. And that didn't hurt him to be able to see, Aquilani get caught up in some traffic. But just that quick, they clear it, Cal. Aquilani draws away, and Buford's right there, and now taking a look.
And I think with someone like Lawson Aschenbach, he's not only thinking about the dynamic of this race, he's thinking about guys around him as well. He recognizes that Andrew Aquilani might not be around here for the full season. How important is it to get those few extra points away from him? Are you giving it to someone you're competing for the championship? Jade Buford, I don't think he signed up for the whole season. how defensive will you get against those guys? Yes, you want victories. You'd love to get that new Camaro GT4 a victory on debut,
right.
But he is immediately, even though it's round one, he'll be thinking big picture of a championship. That's why he's won so many.
Well, the difference is he's already got a point for pole. The difference between first and second is 2 points. So, you know, it's not that huge. And, of course, it's different from last year where you win 110 for the win and 90 for second. But when they changed the point structure and reduced the number of points awarded, they tried to keep the percentages fairly similar. And it's down to just a 2-point difference first to second. So I think you might see, obviously, you know, playing chess in the long game here, exactly what you're talking about. Those lead three now have opened up a gap of some 8 seconds over Baptista. He's got a further 7 seconds back to the fastest or highest running, I should say, right now of the Ginettas, and Harry Gottsacker running in the 5th spot. And then Martin Barkey, though, has closed up. He's within a second of Gottsacker right now. And Martin's running some pretty quick laps as well.
Aquilani now is the fastest race lap at a 121.635. Why am I giving you all the numbers? Because Archenbach's fastest is a 121.687. There is a point for that, and there is the pole position up for grabs for tomorrow's race. And as we know on street circuits, track position is critical. Not so much over the course of the 50-minute race, but just easing any issues or concerns with traffic and racing down in that turn 1.
But once again, you can see the difference in the platform there, all the way down that front straight between the Mustang there and the Camaro. The Mustang under acceleration, that nose is up, and that back is squatted, and the Camaro behind it, compared to what they ran last year, a lot more just planted and level. That's that GT4 Aero, isn't it?
It really is. It's a superb looking car, really aggressive at the front end. Different tire size, going from the 19-inch wheel down to the 18, but a lot to learn. It's early days, and you just got to think that with that team and the ability within that squad, they're going to get stronger and stronger as they get more miles, more knowledge, more of a notebook built with the GT4 platform. Just got word from pit lane from Jeff Lepper that we understand Parker Chase's engine just keeps shutting off. He has to keep resetting it and refiring it. That's why I've seen him slow and go down the escape route there just a few laps ago.
Few things more frustrating than electronic issues. Folks, we're going to lay out for just a second here and let you enjoy the sounds of the Pirelli World Challenge, because that's how racing should be. hope you enjoyed that little period there. I've just been able to listen to some of the great sounds from these machines. Interestingly, the top three all make V8s, running in different chassis, obviously, so that's a lot of fun. Then sitting in the 4th spot, Rodrigo Baptista, the rookie, doing a superb job at the Flying Lizard Porsche Cayman Club Sport MR, and Harry Gottsacker, the Ginetta, sitting in the 5th spot right now, and then Martin Barkey in there. This battle is actually really good. Barkey has thrown down a couple of very quick laps and has reeled in and caught the back now of Gottsacker. Now we'll see exactly what happens. Let's see if Barkey does the line that he's been driving in Paramount here. Yep, there it is. Well, then he straightens it up just a little bit. But he would literally, when he make that move, he would just kind of go straight to the apex and then get his turning in. He said, which one got him past the paint.
Yeah.
So when he was loading the front, he wasn't on that slippery paint. And two, it just allowed him to carry the top end that this car has, which again is a little bit less than some of the other cars, just a little bit more.
I think the ABS system, I think Gottsacker, their little bobble there, turning into turn 4, Barkey may have grabbed that position. Oh, there's a problem. This may be similar to Parker Chase there. They had issues with the sister car shutting down.
Good point.
Maybe suddenly Harry has got a similar issue with the 69 machine. See, I think definitely got a big line. We're getting back to the line you're talking about with Barkey. That's one of the things with the ABS systems, Greg. You can go in there, very acute angle, turn the wheel with the brakes still on. That's not going to lock up the wheel, so that allows you to experiment a bit more with the lines here on the approach to turn 1.
Always tricky with that big white paint that you're turning across. Well, look at this little battle. You said at the top of the show, tasty we might see in this championship. I think that's exactly what we are enjoying.
So we have a really strong run here. So we love it like the new platform to work with. A bit more straightaway speed this year. I know we were very frustrated last year with the issues they had down these long straightaways, but look at this, he just extends that margin right now over Monte Carlo once again.
That's 7th, 8th, and 9th. Stacy in the green and black Flying Lizard Porsche, then Gables in the Camaro, the Monte Carlo in the 13 Crossbow. And behind them, just sort of sitting there, is Jason Bell in the Sin. I think behind him is the lap car of Kessels.
Frankie here really starting to get racy. Certainly that crossbow does not have the straightaway speed of the majority of the cars that Frankie's been around today, so that'll be an eye-opener for him in terms of dealing with that, managing it, not getting frustrated, trying to really work with the strengths of this crossbow platform versus the little deficiency it seems to have down the straightaway.
Tell you, in that front grille of those two Camaros, they've got some very, very shiny type of paint on the grills, and as they transition through corners and the sun starts glinting off, which almost looks like they have a light sequence flashing in there.
That's very cool. You can see it right there.
It is. Yeah.
Beautiful. Great looking car. Everyone very excited about the potential, and we had a nice discussion with all of the folks from GM this morning about how they intend to turn this into a full custom car program for next year. We talked about the durability and the strength of the car in terms of being up to the challenges that the class demands, and really letting this Black Dog Speed Shop team develop it through the course of this year, so it's a total turnkey platform for next year for any customer teams that want to run it.
And traffic now going to play a role once again into that very, very quick 11-12 complex. Aquilani down to the inside. Cameron Majari in the white Cayman sees him coming through. Does he see Aschenbach in second? Smart move by Lawson.
Yeah, really, and Cameron there didn't quite give him enough room, and that's compromised Lawson's speed onto the front straightaway, and Jade Buford has got a good run. What will he do down at turn 1? Lawson protects to the inside, gives him a lane. Jade goes for it. This is going to be really tight there. Jade had to use some of the curbing there. Now Aquilani's got traffic issues as well.
He wanted
Things
to go
are
around
heating
the outside, yeah.
Oh, this is tight for Lawson. Can Jade Buford get on the power early enough?
Well, Mirzan moved over, and that really helped Aquilani, but then there was, and again, not a lot Mirzan could do.
He can't disappear.
No.
Rules of the brakes, as they say, in terms of dealing with traffic. And that's what Brian Till said during the drivers' meeting yesterday. There's certain areas of this racetrack you just need to hold your line. Don't do anything dramatic. Just hold your line and let the faster cars make their way by on a different part of the racetrack.
Now here's the bad news, obviously, for Lawson is in that exchange he lost a fair amount of distance to Aquilani. The good news is the previous lap he retook fast lap. That's a point, let alone pole. So
yeah, that's huge. So with the 2 points, basically he's making up the difference. So with the win, 2 bonus points, that gives him the same total as Aquilani. If Aquilani should secure the victory here today, they'd both be on 25.
I think that was Gottsacker making a move into the pits as we're now closing in on 10 minutes remaining.
Well, certainly in that last lap exchange with traffic, it has allowed Andrew Aquilante to extend his lead at the front. Now I think this will be the real key indicator. What we see in terms of fast laps right now, Greg, in terms of who has the pace here for the real sprint to the finish.
Got confirmation, by the way, from Jeff in pit lane that Gottsacker in the pull-off radioed that there was an issue. They don't yet know whether it was just a mechanical issue or it was a related electrical issue. Boy, close concert. Near contact down in turn 10 between the 62 570S tender belly entry of Mark Clennon right there. Beautiful car. And Anthony Mantella in the equally different look but beautiful crossbow. And those two are having a really solid dice, and it's for the 10th spot, trying to crack the top 10.
Great to see this 570S here in competition. Nice. One of the stalwarts in the Pirelli World Challenge Championship. Always does a great job. And Anthony Mantella, what a story he was last year in terms of his improvement throughout the course of the year. And his team just do an excellent job in campaigning these cars.
Of course, last year Clennon ran the Gran Turismo Maserati, and at times was extremely right on pace and the like. Now he's having to learn a brand new car, and he said it's night and day different, but he said it's amazing. And so he's having, I'm sure, a very educational race at this stage. Meanwhile, up front, Aquilani, the margin officially now 1.6 seconds.
Aschenbach took 2/10 out of that gap there on that last lap and ran a lap just about a tenth off of his fastest, so he still has pace. How hard will he push it here in this final 9 minutes or so of this event to try and wrestle the lead away from Andrew? Buford's not gone anywhere as well. He's hanging in there with the Sin.
Now it's interesting. Baptista has his best lap is at a 1:22.7, as is Markey, but they have just dropped way back, some 17 seconds of drift here. Those two still having a really good scrap for that fourth spot, but it's just unfolding a lot farther back in the order than they'd like right now. Yeah, Nate Stacey is putting up some pretty good times here and has actually gone around Gables and Monte Calvo and is now within 4 seconds about of Baptista and Markey.
Yeah, he's done a nice job here. We talked about his time management skills from last year. He just laid down the fastest lap of his race very late in the going, so that's a good indicator. But you talk about the leaders, Greg. Yeah, they've got a solid second over the rest of the field, and that's why they have that massive lead right now in terms of fast laps.
Going back to find our current fourth place runner. First of all, take a look at this battle, and these are some cars that have been dealing with some issues. And Mirzan and Majari just a little bit farther back in the order. And here he is, Rodrigo Baptista, the young Brazilian driver. Amazing story. Just hasn't been racing very long. Got some help from HT Pro Nutrition on the car, but has climbed the ladder in a remarkably short period of time. And I mean substantial, huge steps on the ladder from karting to some Formula stuff, and then right into the Blancpain Endurance Championship last year with the Belgian club, the team WRT.
Yeah, and they're one of the best in the business. And he had a podium run at Paul Ricard. He said it was a difficult season, but he said he learned a lot. As you mentioned, Greg, some single-seater experience in Brazilian Formula 3. And whilst he was running in Europe last year, I think his residence was in Spain. So, and that's really what's cool about these young kids, just gaining all of that experience, and not just on the racetrack, but also having to live in different places, different cultures, different teams, personnel, And for young Nate Stacey, when he joined the Flying Lizard organization in the off-season, Darren Law took him over to Germany to the Porsche fitness camp. They went to the Porsche Museum, trying to get him fully integrated into the Porsche way of going about their racing.
Yeah, full immersion. And I mean, Porsche's been doing it right for an awful lot of years, and to understand that concept will only be a tremendous opportunity for Nate State. One thing that I really like what I'm seeing Andrew do, and I just enjoy watching the man race regardless of where and what he's in, but with the margin he's got now over Lawson, watch what he does in what they call 13-14, which is basically that long hairpin leading onto the front straight. Knowing Lawson's not close enough to try and stuff it down the inside, he's really diamonding it a little bit. So when he goes to the throttle, the car's fairly straight, and he can just launch out of there and not be eating up tires.
Look at this battle.
Bell down to the inside.
Bell.
Yeah.
It's a great battle here between Jason Bell and Frankie Montecalvo. That is for the 8th position. Yeah, and getting back to you talking about adjusting your lines, one of the best in the business. Spoke to Mike Hull from Chip Ganassi Racing about this with Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon, when the tire starts to go away, said, leave it with me. He'll adjust his line for what the tire will give him. And you're absolutely spot on there, Greg, in that analysis in terms of that later turn and getting the steering wheel straight, so that allows you to go to power. You're not going to light up the rear tires. And I think we're seeing Andrew take a similar approach here in the late going.
Well, Jason Bell looks like he's just come alive, hasn't he?
Well, I think he's learning this car as well.
Exactly.
He doesn't have a ton of experience with this, so every lap you're putting something more into that personal notebook, what the car will take, what this racetrack will give you.
I'll tell you what, Tony Gapel's doing what Tony Gapels does. 15th, running in 7th right now.
He's a great racer.
He is. He is. I've talked to him as we're at 5 minutes remaining, and I call him the pass master, and he said that's a kind way of saying I'm a bad qualifier. And I said no. I said what it's saying is that you may not be the greatest qualifier in the world, but you're a great race driver. You love racing. And I talked to him not too long before the start of the race, and he said, yeah, I can't wait to get out there and get to racing. He said, that's what I love, and it shows.
I teased my wife when I was running the Mid-Ohio Sports Car School. We took Heather to the school, and she was the most improved, and she said, yeah, that just meant I was really bad to begin with.
Well, it's the old saying, you got to start somewhere.
That's right.
Exactly. Well, I think Jason smells an opportunity here. Well, one thing I've noticed with Tony, too, is that he's done a really great job. Every time we've watched him here, that car is not stepping out of line at all. He also clearly got the message about we got to look after these tires, because this is their opportunity to learn what they can do. Kind of reminiscent of what 2 years ago Spencer Pompelli did when he had a great run in the early part of the race and ran his tires off, and he said, oh, I figured that out. The next race, he just disappeared. So
his tires literally fell off a cliff in terms of he was really abused them in the early going, and came back for the second day. Totally different situation. What's cool about, you think about Tony Gapel, so many races under his belt in Pirelli World Challenge, but he's racing against two guys, even though Frankie's been in the championship a long time, but in a different class, against guys he's not racing against before. So this is fun. This is what's really intriguing about a new season, new faces, new talent.
And Jade Buford, now the spoiler, has gone to fast lap. He's got the Motul fast lap so far at a 1:21.488, much to Lawson Aschenbach's consternation, I'm sure.
And particularly because that means he's a little bit closer to Lawson Aschenbach as well.
But look what Andrew did in the first sector. Akalani, by far best sector time at a 28.1 as we're into our final three.
Yeah, that's 6/10 up on Lawson just in a 28-second sector there. That is a massive amount, a massive advantage to have.
Not enough for a fast lap, or did it?
Yes, it is. Fast lap for Aquilani, so I'm sure his team are keeping him abreast of what everyone's doing, and Andrew has responded. He wants that bonus point, and he wants pole for tomorrow.
But, boy, this is going to get interesting here, where we might be getting the white flag next time by, possibly. And Aquilani, once again, catching some traffic. Couple of cars. George Kurtz in the CrowdStrike Global Motorsports Group 570S. They'll meet first. And again, Aschenbach and Buford watching, and oh, look at that. George doing a nice job. Just let him through clean.
Really, there's a little bit of racing luck involved in terms of when you meet this traffic. They're going to try and do their best to get out of the way, but they can't disappear.
Yep. Now, this is interesting. Will that 18 let him through?
Oh.
He did.
Andrew's really balked there. He's going to lose a lot of speed there. Lawson's going to be a lot closer, but time is running out for Lawson Archambault if he's going to grab this opening victory for the Camaro GT4.
So, I guess maybe we're a little optimistic about the white flag. One more to go before the white flag. So 2 laps remaining in this one. Lawson going to move down to the inside now of Cameron. Boy, he closed it up though, Cal.
He really
and I think
did.
that was, he just had a quicker run through the hairpin, didn't he?
And we're going to be really close to the 50-minute mark when they cross the stripe, so we didn't see the white flag, but the time is going to be really tight.
And Buford actually now has lost touch just a little bit in that exchange through traffic. I would say here we'll see whether Lawson has the speed now to go with Aquilani, because I think if he's got the opportunity, he's going to, 1, try hard to get that fast lap, and 2, and go to the win. That's the first time I've seen Lawson give it enough welly there that the car started to wiggle under acceleration.
Yep. Very similar, within hundredths on the first sector time. Wilson's close.
Yes, he is.
Don't see any immediate traffic for Andrew Alkalani to deal with. Look at this time on the clock. This is going to be awfully close to the 50-minute mark, Greg.
Oh, you're right.
Flag.
They're saying, we're getting a report from that it will be the white flag this time. And yep, there it is. 3, 2,
It's close.
White
Well,
flag
right on
it
the
is.
mark. It was
Right
like
on the mark.
50 flat or 50-01. Either way,
Oh,
white
look at
flag was
this.
displayed, and Archambault is close.
I noticed that the exit at 10, Aquilani was willing to go right to the wall, and Aschenbach gave it a couple of feet, and Andrew, by the time they got to that chicane, had gapped him by about 3-4 car lengths.
Andrew is really good through that
Yes,
apex of
he
the
is.
new turn 3, and I think that's where he really gets that little edge in terms of Aschenbach not being close enough for the brake zone for turn 4. From this point forward, it's all about placing the race car. Getting a good clean exit, not through this one, but the next one. This is the critical corner right here, turn 9. Gets it settled.
Nice run through it by both of them. But Aquilani just picks up a car length or 2, Cal.
He does.
Now watch the exit here. And that time they were both a little circumspect.
Through the high-speed chicane here. Andrew Aquilani has done a superb job here. Look at him ride the curbs there. He's on the brakes for the final couple of corners.
Onto the front straight. Right now scheduled just to run here at Sebring, at St. Pete, but maybe this will have the team take a look at running a few more races. Andrew Aquilani adds another win to the record books in the Pirelli World Challenge Championship. Lawson Aschenbach from pole ends up in the 2nd spot. Tremendous run there. And Jade Buford having a very, very solid run as well. And taking a look here at the quickest laps that we saw, it looks as though Aquilani, by just about 4 100ths of a second, Aquilani's got the fastest lap over Buford. So he will start on pole, and he takes that crucial pole point away from everybody else. That's Andrew's 4th win now in 29 starts in the championship. And yeah, you can put new Pirellis on for the next race. So
That's right.
Have some fun on the cool down lap.
His 2nd sprint victory too in GTS Sprint X competition at the end of last year. So he's had a lot of success, but these victories are tough to come by. He'll love this one. Great way to start his 2017 campaign. Great debut run for the Camaro.
Yep.
They'll be pleased with that. I'm sure they would like the victory. But pole position and a 2nd place run for Lawson Archambault. And Tony Gables, great run as well today.
Impressive.
Up in the 7th place.
And for the Black Dog team in these Camaros, and I know that we've kind of beat this to death, but it's so important, obviously. These, Pirelli P0s are phenomenal tires, but you still have to manage them a little bit, and any tire, you abuse it, it's going to fall off. And for, I think, the Black Dog team, this is just going to be a huge learning opportunity here to now take a look at, what do we need to do possibly for tomorrow's race and adjust things a little bit so that you can just run a little bit harder throughout.
Hats off to all of the competitors in keeping this race clean. I mean,
especially with that new turn 3, that's, I think, impressive.
Tough set of circumstances, and everyone dealt with it very, very well. And all credit to the track, too. I mean, they had to make a big change overnight. They made the brave decision, and so far it's worked well. I think the corner still gives the track a good flow, and without any real major issues.
Yeah, Andrew had been, the reason I threw Sebring in there was he had run the previous weekend over at Sebring at an event, and he'd led it, and then they had a mechanical issue, and he said, and he put up a Facebook post that said, well, we'll fix it, and we'll head to St. Pete, and I couldn't help responding and said, where the curbs await some serious hopping, looking forward to it, and then he puts together a run like this. That's just great stuff. Aschenbach second, Buford third. How about the rookie Rodrigo Baptista? Very impressive run into fourth, fending off Martin Barkey for almost the second half of the race in its entirety.
Yeah, and obviously every racetrack is different, but maybe that Cayman needs a little bit of a tweaking in terms of its BOP. But even so, to have 2 of those Flying Lizard cars up in the top 6, I think they'll take that. Be very happy that they got fresh cars to put on the racetrack tomorrow. No damage. Great job by both of the youngsters.
And just looking at it here, Nate Stacey at the end of that one got that margin to Barkey trimmed down to just a couple of seconds here. So Stacey really found it late in the going. That was for 6th. Gapel 7th. Bell in his debut race in 8th in the Sin. Monte Calvo in his debut in the Expo, but a former GTA champ in 9th. And Anthony Mantella won the battle with Mark Clennon for that 10th spot. But some good stuff. Andrew Aquilani climbs out of the car. And you can see Jeff Leppard down there doing an interview for CBS Sports Network coverage with our winner. And I'll tell you, just always a joy to watch Andrew Aquilani run.
He's a great guy, and he knows how to get the job done. He loves building his own race cars. He's involved in every aspect of this business.
Yep.
And when he's behind the wheel, he does a superb job at the same time. So great group there. His dad's one of the best in the business. Great character, and good to see that family having a good day.
He helps build these cars, and I mean, a lot of the guys that build the cars have that great mechanical sensitivity and can really feel what's going on, and he does just a great job. So congratulations to Andrew Aquilani, winner and Motu Pole Award winner, which means he'll start at the front of the grid for round 2 of the championship. That'll come up tomorrow, and of course you'll be able to tune in and watch it live right here on the web. Lawson Aschenbach and Jade Buford complete the podium as round 1 is in the books. Thanks for joining us, everybody, here on our global webcast. We look forward to doing it again with you tomorrow. And, of course, we will have 2 races from the St. Petersburg Grand Prix presented by Case-It tomorrow. We will have the second of the GTS rounds, but we'll have the opening round of the GT Championship. What a field is entered. What a field has put on some remarkable runs already in practice and qualifying. You're not going to want to miss that one either. So we'll see you tomorrow.